Yeah. So some of you know the story. I mean, a lot of people know that I had a heart attack on May 15th of this year, or of last year, rather. And there's a handful of people that know the full story of that experience, which has turned out to be so many things. Quite obviously, the most profound experience in my life, the most life-changing experience in my life on many different levels. I am still, I'm still, I'm still processing a lot of it. There's the physical aspect, which I don't have like a lot of confidence in my heart. Some of you know that I just had another heart procedure last week. I had another heart cath after they thought I had another heart attack. Turns out I didn't, but I don't have a lot of confidence in my heart, which causes all kinds of issues, and that alone would be enough to I don't know, be concerning and life-changing. And so yeah, I just started cardiac rehab back up again today because of that, and there's just not a whole lot of confidence in my heart physically, and that's disconcerting, especially when I have two young kids, and so that's one side of it. The other side of it is much more consuming. It's much more, I don't even know the words, and it's going to happen a lot. Well, let me just tell you what happened. It's still very emotional. It's still very raw. I haven't told the story fully in a long time. I've only told to maybe 3 or 4 people. But I truly believe, not knowing why, I truly believe that I'm supposed to tell my story. I truly believe that God is asking me to tell my story. I don't know why. I don't know what purpose it serves. Is it therapeutic for me? Does it help others in some way? I don't know. I'm not seeing that. But I know that I am definitely feeling called to share this story. Because when I step back from the story, it is quite remarkable. And I'm sure at some point I will have a better grip on it, a better perspective, and I can think of it a little more objectively than I can right now. It's still very raw. And because I haven't told the story in a while, and kind of shied away from telling the story, I think it makes today a little bit harder to share this because I haven't gone there in a while. So May 13th, I'll back up a couple days before that. We spent last winter in Chicago unexpectedly. We were planning on being in Arizona, and for several reasons, it made sense for us to stay in Chicago through the winter, knowing we were coming back to northern Michigan in May to camp for the summer. So our camper was down at my parents' house in Indiana. And so Cubby and I went to my parents' house in Indiana, and Juju and Annetta stayed in Chicago. The plan was for Cubby and I to go get the camper, take it up to northern Michigan, get camp set up, and then the following week go back and get Juju and Annetta. They were finishing up some last-minute Chicago stuff, and Annetta had some loose ends to finish up before she came up here for the summer. So that was the plan. Went to my parents' house, had an amazing time with my mom and dad. It was the first time Cubby got to spend time with my mom and dad by himself. And it really was an amazing trip. And Cubby and I just had a blast together and traveling together. It was fun and so forth. So So there's some hiccups in that story that probably triggered the heart attack, which I won't bore you with. Some car problems, hitch problems, being stuck, having to call AAA. There's all kinds of stuff that caused stress that probably led to what was inevitable at some point. But I think all that contributed. But so we got up to northern Michigan. We got up to the campground, up to Starlight Campground, and got there late in the afternoon, early evening, and I was drained. So we just kind of set the camper up, basically, just so we could sleep. So we just and then we do the rest of it tomorrow. So we went and got something to eat. Came back and went to bed. So it was just Cubby and I in our bed, and I such great memories of our camper and campers that we've had, and spending time with my kids. Especially sleeping together in the camper and just staying up and talking and playing and telling stories and reading, and just my favorite memories of my time spent with my babies. And so that night we went to sleep. Cubby's laying right next to me. We went to sleep, excited we're up in northern Michigan, excited we're camping because I could not wait to get back up here. And I sleep better in the camper, and it was just, life was, excuse me, life was good. Life was, as good as it could be under all the circumstances we were under. And there was definitely a peace about that. So, excuse me one second, I got a cough. So, go to sleep. Cubby's sleeping, I'm sleeping. I roll over about 4 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there, and just felt this huge pressure grab. It's like somebody just grabbed my chest, and I was kind of awake because I was kind of rolling over, knowing I was rolling over, so it didn't bring me completely out of my sleep. I was kind of rolling over, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And it just took the breath and wind right out of me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." And so my brain wasn't thinking heart attack, even though it knew it. I just didn't allow myself to. Maybe, I don't know. So my initial reaction was breathe. I just had to breathe, and it took me 30-40 minutes to calm down. I just slowed my breathing down, and it subsided, so I dozed back off. Sometime later it happened again. Same force, same reaction, and again subsided after 30-40 minutes. Dozed back off, and it happened a third time. And at that point, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. My mind's racing. My mind is just, what do I do? Some stupid stuff. I didn't want to burden anybody. We just got to the campground. I didn't want to burden Sam, the owner of the campground. We just got there. Stupid. I should have. And I know she would have reacted the way, she should have reacted and so forth. But, my pride got in the way. I didn't want to burden anybody. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what they do with Cubby. So if I go to the hospital, what do they do with Cubby? Do they call family services? I don't want that. So all these things, do I call 911? All these things are running through my head. Eventually at that third time I called Annetta and said, "Hey, don't freak out." I think my first words to her. But I have to head to the hospital. And I asked her to find somebody in Traverse City, one of our friends in Traverse City, that I can drop Cubby off. So I drove from Mansalona to Traverse City, which was obviously not a wise choice, but I could have hurt Cubby, I could have hurt myself, I could have hurt others. So, but I want to go back to when it first started. There's a couple things that just are still so impactful. Sorry, I'm going to be snotty and stuff all day doing this. First of all, I was laying there trying to breathe and looking at my boy next to me. He's sleeping. It was peaceful, and I was so scared that he was going to wake up and not have a daddy. I was thinking about my Juju back in Chicago, that I wasn't going to see her again. I knew I was in trouble, and I knew that I may die. But I was looking at that little boy and imagining from his perspective waking up and his daddy's gone. And that's so heartbreaking to me. But the other part of that was, and part of the reason I knew I was in trouble, I'm going to take these off. This is just not going to be worth it having them on. Part of the reason I knew I was in trouble right away was as soon as it happened, I closed my eyes. I was grabbing my chest, and the only thing I saw was Jesus. And he was just there trying to keep me calm, trying to bring me peace in the moment. And no matter what I did, he was right there, front and center. I could see him, and he was telling me to just, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. But I also know, since I was seeing Jesus, I knew I was in trouble. So I knew, not only did the physical pain of it and all that, I knew I was in trouble, but that scared me. And again, coupled with Cubby laying right next to me. But no matter what I did, I saw and felt Jesus with me every second of that. So I get to the hospital. We drop Cubby off at our friend Sarah's, and I don't remember the drive. I remember calling Annetta outside the campground as I'm pulling out, find somebody. She must have called me back. And I don't remember driving. I don't remember dropping Cubby off. I do remember getting to the hospital and kind of stumbling into the hospital. And, I felt better that I made it. I remember feeling relieved that I was there. I felt better that Annetta knew. I felt better that Cubby was safe. I was worried about Juji. Not knowing what's happening to her daddy. But I was worried about Annetta handling it all. But I was at the hospital. Now we can figure out what's next. So I don't remember doing the EKG. I remember walking the hospital. I don't remember anything until I was in the hospital room or the ER room. And I remember the doctors came in and said that the EKG was fine. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe it was something else. Or I was like, all right, I was relieved and hopeful. Weird stuff seems to happen to me. So I was like, all right, well, chalk another one up Jay's mystery things. So I'm like, all right. And then the blood work came back and the doctors came in, and I remember, and it wasn't long after that. It was a brief period. And I remember the doctors telling me, no, you had a heart attack. And I first remember just slumping. I remember just feeling completely defeated. I think that's started the shock period, and I still feel like I'm in shock that it happened. Not that, if you look at me from the outside perspective, being overweight, middle-aged, all those things, stress, all those things, it makes sense. But I felt good. My numbers were all good. My blood pressure is good. Cholesterol is good. All that stuff. It never dawned on me, even though there's a family history on my mom's side. It never registered to me that I would have a heart attack or that would be me. I was so shocked and defeated in that moment. And I remember my next thought, almost instantly after was, I gotta call Annetta and tell her, and I gotta call my mom and tell her. And I knew both of them would be, pretty devastated. But the doctors left. I was talking to the nurse. The nurse was in there, and she was saying, listen, now we know what's happened. Normally what's going to happen is they're going to try to get you up to the cath lab in the next week or so, and they'll take a look at things and maybe put a stent in and figure things out. And, so at least we had a plan. I was through the initial shock of it, and at least, we knew it wasn't all the unknown still. So I'm like, all right. So I remember being on the phone with either my mom or Annetta. I believe I was on the phone with Annetta, kind of giving them an update when the doctors came in. I don't know if it was right then when she was saying that or whatever, or I'm not sure. But they said, "Oh no, we're taking you up now. You're going up now. We're going to prep you right now to go up there." So I was a little alarmed at that, that they were going to do it right now, but they were going to do it and get it out of the way. This heart catheterization is something they do all the time. It's still, surgery, and it's still, you're messing with somebody's heart, and it's still, major, but it's commonplace now. They've been doing it for a long time, and they do it many times a day, all day long. And so I wasn't really scared about that itself. I was nervous just because of the procedure, but I was all right. We're gonna go up. So one of my thoughts was, all right, does Annetta need to get here? And the doctor's like, no, she's in Chicago. I don't want her to race here, and this is something we do all the time. We kind of know what's going to happen. This isn't an emergency situation any longer. So let's just do the cath, and then we can talk. But there's no reason for her to race here. So don't remember going to the cath lab. I remember them saying I was going to go, but that's probably the last thing I remember. So I go to the cath lab. The story is that my heart stopped while I was in the cath lab, and my wife gets a call from the doctor standing right next to me in the cath lab, said, "Hey, your husband's having another massive heart attack while I'm talking to you. We have to race him upstairs." So now Annetta has to, grab Juji and figure out how to get here quickly. So, there's a story about them getting to the airport and how they got through the airport and so forth. That's, comical. But, they had to get on a plane, and Annetta had to get on a plane not knowing if I was going to be here when she landed. And I think about that all the time. I think about how I would have felt if it was her, and what those 6 hours must have been like. And for my mom, and, I can't imagine being on a plane and just not knowing until you land whether your husband is alive or not. So, obviously I didn't know all that was going on. So the first thing I remember after the heart attack, I don't know if it's the first thing, it's all jumbled. But I remember I'm highly allergic to anesthesia, so I get really violently sick with anesthesia. But I wasn't thinking about that yet. I would be soon enough. But the first thing I remember, and it was one of the worst moments of this whole thing, because I heard Anetta's voice. And I remember waking up realizing that I'm chained down on the bed. My arms and feet are chained down to the bed, and I was intubated. So I went to talk, and just instant panic came over me. And I knew I was in trouble, so my brain calmed me down. I'm sure they shot me and gave me a shot of something too, because I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, just I've never had sensed that type of panic before. It was awful. And again, not really knowing what was happening. I just knew I heard Anetta's voice, and I was trying to get to her, and I was chained down. And they do that so you don't pull everything out, which I would have. So I was intubated for another day or two. I don't really know. I was in and out of it for a long time, for several days, because I was sick, and they had me drugged up, trying to get me not to throw up. Can you imagine throwing up with your chest just cracked open? And so they were doing everything they could not to help me not get sick and so forth. So I was pretty out of it. Didn't really know what was happening. Anetta was there. Didn't know she was there. She said she came in a couple times, and I was just not there. Even though I was awake, I was just not there. Yeah, it was just, there's so many different memories and visions of that time. But I remember it was probably 4 days after the surgery. I had a quadruple bypass. The situation that I mentioned, that I just had the heart cath, it turns out one of the 4 isn't working. That's why I went to the hospital last week and had the procedure. So that was kind of fun to learn. But anyway, so I just didn't know. I didn't know anything was going on. And I remember hearing the nurses and the doctors talk when they came in, and trying to piece things together. I just wasn't there. And as I slowly started becoming a little more alert and just like really confused of where I was, what was happening, and I heard them talking, and I was questioning, like, what happened? Where am I at? It didn't even dawn on me that I wouldn't be in the situation I was in if I just was in the cath lab and that was it. That wasn't the progression of things to happen, but I wasn't there. And so I'm putting things together, and I'm kind of questioning, and I remember like just scratching my chest, and I felt staples, and I panicked. I'm like, whoa, what, huh? Like, I looked, and I had this big 18-inch, incision in my body. And I was just, it's still hard to look at. It's still hard to see it. But I was like, wait, what time? What time out? What happened? I don't understand. I was going to the cath lab, and what? So they told me the story of what happened several times, because I wasn't grasping it, and over the next couple of days and remembering it. And so yeah. So that's kind of the physical story of what happened. And I'm sure Anetta has different, maybe someday Anetta will share her side of this and from her perspective, because I think it's an interesting one that I am still asking her questions about. I asked her something the other day about whether she prayed for me at that time. Did she pray? I don't know, what was she thinking? What was that 6 hours like? Things like that. So that was that. And then, I got out of the hospital and went to the campground, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But, so there was a period, and I don't know when it was. I don't know if it was, I was in the cath lab, my heart stopped. I don't know if it was after that. I have no idea when it was or for how long it was. But there was a time that it was very clear that I wasn't here. I remember the sensation of being pulled from my body, of leaving my body. And it seems to feel like I was in the ICU, but I don't know. I don't know when it was, but I remember distinctly the sensation of leaving my body. And I remember the first part was knowing that I was no longer in my body and no longer on earth, I guess. And not really being scared or anything of that. But I do remember the initial vision and feeling. There was this warmth, this just amazing warm glow. And it's kind of like when you look at the sun with your eyes closed and you see all the oranges and yellows and the bright colors, and it just feels so good and just warms your soul. It kind of felt like that. So there was instantly this just peace and just comfort. And I also knew I wasn't alone there. I couldn't see anybody, but I sensed that I wasn't alone. And I felt like there were angels around me. I remember thinking that at the time. So quickly I realized what was happening, and that I had left my body, and I was I was crossing over to heaven, and I was like, no. I'm not going. I'm not going until I know they're going to be okay. I'm not going. I'm not. I have to know that they're going to be okay. I have to know that Netta's going to be okay. I have to know my baby's going to be okay. I just remember standing there. I'm like, no. This isn't happening. I was okay with it happening. I was. Because there's already this sense of peace and weight lifted. But I could not go. Thinking about my babies. And I don't know how long it lasted, but I was pleading. It's like, no, I can't go without knowing they're going to be okay. And then I was just given this gift of knowing. I saw. I saw them. I was given this vision of a scene. It's like a dream sequence when you see your whole life pass you. I saw their whole life. Sorry. I saw them thriving, and I saw them happy. And it was and I was told that, here, I was shown this. Here's your babies. And they were happy. And I was told that I was always going to be able to watch over them. I was always going to be able to see them. And, seeing them happy and thriving, and seeing Anetta happy and thriving, in I saw all of them rebounding from the loss of their daddy or their husband and just doing great. And I wasn't upset about that. I was unbelievably grateful that I was shown that and given that. There's some issues now, particularly with Anetta. I know the kids would not have been better off without a daddy. I certainly know that. But Anetta she was so radiant and confident and thriving. And now I struggle with that vision because I want that for her, and not knowing if I can not provide it. I know I'm not responsible for that, but at least contributing to healthy relationship and environment for our family that person can't emerge. And so it's difficult, and I question, it's going to sound bad, but I question whether she's not better off or would be better off because I was shown it. But that's another show. So I know that I know. I mean, I without a question of a doubt, I know my family's okay and they're going to be fine. And not only are they going to be fine, they're going to be thriving and happy and have long, beautiful lives. And maybe that event of losing me was a turning point for all of them, and their lives took a different trajectory, and that's what made that all possible. I don't know. But it was such a blessing. And I remember feeling so, there's no words to even say it, describe it, but I was like, okay, I'm ready. And at that moment, there was something I'm sure others have tried to describe that have had similar experiences, and there are no earthly words or way to convey the feeling of the weight, the burdens of life that were lifted, and in the essence of who we truly are. And just, there was such, peace isn't even the right word, but it's the only one we have to describe. Just there was such a peace and happiness and joy, genuine joy and happiness and peace that was so overwhelming. It was so, again, there's no words. There's nothing anybody can ever say that could describe that. We're not capable of sharing that. And I just remember being overwhelmed by that, and just comfortable and happy, and like I can't explain it. So we started again, knowing that there were angels with me, beings with me, heading down this path. And as we started moving forward, in the distance, I started seeing shadows. It looked like mountains from a distance. And it was beautiful. I can't even explain. It wasn't mountains, it was shadows. It was kind of like when the sun is behind something, you just see the shadow. You don't see what it really is. And so I was moving forward, and just, again, so weightless and happy. And I can't explain the peace. It was so overwhelming and so amazing. And just so as I started getting closer to those shadows, I started to realize that they weren't mountains. They were shadows and silhouettes of people. So it's just like dark figures, shadows. And as I got closer, some of that started coming into focus. And and I was still feeling just this amazing love and peace, and it was happiness. It was joy. And as I moved closer, I realized there were people. And then I realized there were people I know. Actually, the first thing I noticed were animals. The first thing I saw were the dogs in my life that had passed away. And I saw several faces that had left us. My Uncle Jim, my Uncle Ken. And there's still people that to this day I still see that, and I remember who it was. I didn't remember seeing my Aunt Jo, and weeks later I realized that she was standing. I know exactly where she was standing. But so I'm coming up to this group of people and just now recognizing people and the looks on their faces and the pure excitement and joy. It's like you had this big welcoming committee that they were so excited to see me. They were so happy to see me. But I remember seeing, and there was a focal point in the middle. It took me a long time to tell this part of the story, particularly to my mom. So I saw several people I recognized, and they were so excited to see me, but in the center was my grandma and grandpa, who I'd never met. And, that's where I was heading. I was heading right to my grandma, and standing when I got all the way up there. Again, she hugged me. And then everybody hugged. It was like this big giant. Everybody that was up there had this just big moment and group hug that was just the most. Again, there's no words to describe what that moment was like, or any of it, but particularly that moment and just the pure love that we don't understand. We don't understand. It's nothing like anything we experience here on Earth. And so the hug ended, and God, I look awful. And my grandma. So when the hug ended, I realized my grandma was there with my grandpa and Jesus. It was the three of them and me standing like right together, and then everybody else was just around. And again, the feeling I was having was just a joy and peace and feeling love that there's just no way to explain it. There's just no way to explain it or have somebody understand. Which is frustrating. It is. It's frustrating that I don't have the words, or there aren't words, because there aren't human words earthly words to describe what that was. So I remember coming off that hug and just being face to face with my mom or my grandma and Jesus, and the looks of love on their faces. I see it like it just happened. Just it's no words. So my grandma then kind of pulls back from me. The hug ends, and And she just looks at me and puts her hands on my face and just says, "You are so loved." It's not just that she said it, is the way and the look, but she says, "You are so loved." And up until this point, everything is just, I felt amazing. I felt great. I felt this peace and just something I've always longed for. And being perfectly okay and happy to leave the world behind. And I know that sounds bad. It sounds bad that I have these two babies left behind me. But if you saw what I saw, you'd understand that where I was where I was supposed to be and how things were supposed to be, and my babies were going to be, maybe better off. I don't know. Still struggle with that a little bit, but it was just this overwhelming sense of love and peace, and then it changed. It changed, and I knew going through this was going to resurface a lot, and bring back a lot of the struggle. So everything's amazing, and my grandma says that to me, and then she says, the way she said it and the way her look in her face, and she was so excited, and so she said, "Tell your mom that I love her." Tell your mom that I love her, and I can't wait to see her. Sorry. And I didn't tell my mom that part of the story for a long time because it was so hard. But so she says this, and mom instantly, I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" Sorry. Like, what do you mean? Tell her you can't wait to see her. You're gonna see her at the same time I am. I was taken back. I'm like, what? I was just confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're gonna see her at the same time I am. You can tell her yourself. So I was instantly confused, and like I knew something had changed, something had happened, that all this was happening, and I was shown this amazing gift of seeing my kids happy and healthy, and my wife happy and healthy and thriving, and this showing the peace and love that we only find when we leave this earth. And then all of a sudden it was slipping away. What? I didn't, what? And so I didn't understand. Still don't understand. And so I'm looking around, and they're all still happy and like have that same look of peace and joy, and like I was so loved. Like I was so loved. And I look at Jesus, who's 2 feet away from me. And I must have been pleading with my eyes, and he could see the hurt. And it is hurt. And Jesus simply touched my face. Touched my face and said, "There's still so much for you to do." You just, again, I see the look and the love and the on all their faces, and the warmth and the peace, and he just touches my face. Jesus touches my face and looks at me and says, "There's still so much for you to do." So it all started slipping away. And I sensed that I was returning. Or what I feel and still say is I was being sent back. Which was, and still is, devastating. I don't understand. I don't understand why I was shown all that. Why show me that? Why have me experience that peace and that love and that joy? Just to send me back. I'd rather not experienced it. And I don't want this to sound ungrateful by any means. I know that it was a blessing and a gift, and I'm working on it. I am. And I so thankful that I get to see my babies, and I hug them and kiss them and see them grow up. And every day I look at them and think, and you can't understand. It's not that I didn't want to be here, that I don't want to be here. I have no thoughts of hurting myself or anything like that. It's nothing about that. And there's going to be people that just don't understand why for a long time after. Again, it's not that I didn't want to be here. Those aren't the right words. It's not that I wasn't grateful or am grateful. And if it sounds like it, and it's too bad. You can't understand, and I'm sorry. But I just don't understand why I was sent back, and I'm working on it. Praying on it. I am, as we've talked about already on the show and so forth, my relationship with God has changed, obviously. Especially 2 Sundays ago or whatever that was now, that, I felt like I stepped across the line and stepped into who I am in Christ. And maybe some of me needing to know is not as strong. It leaves me with still a lot of questions and again, not knowing who I am, not knowing what's expected. And again, I don't know. I don't know. And I do know that it will become clear to me. I have full faith, and this isn't just me saying this or manifesting anything. It's like I fully believe that the other side of this for me is joy on earth, finding peace on earth, to greatness, to stepping into who God sees me, how God sees me. Everything I've ever dreamed of and wanted is on the other side of this. And I know that. I have no doubt about that. So there's not a fear of that. I feel that God is working. I can feel it. I can feel him working on me. And he's telling me to be patient. That song, Wait on You from Elevation Church, goes through my head right now in moments like this. Cause I'm waiting. I'm being patient for him to get everything ready for me, to get me ready for me, to lift the fear of who I am in him, because that's always scared me. And it scared me because, it's going to sound stupid, but I mean, it's like I am afraid to fail. I'm afraid to not live up to who I am. Him, and I know that's not how God works. I understand that. But I struggle with still being set back, and and there has to be some reason I was sent back, and I'm not saying that that's some huge thing that I'm going to change the world or it's going to change anything. Maybe it affects me and my family and my people I love and how I live my life, and has some small change. But I ultimately have been struggling with, and not as much now because I've learned to accept that I'm here. I mean, I know it sounds bad, that I'm stuck here, and I still struggle with that. I still struggle that I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I was sent back. I think I'll understand at some point, and I'm gonna continue to trust God and what he's doing in my life, and what the opportunities he's given me and the doors he's opening for me. I'm gonna step through them bravely, even when I don't want to. But ultimately, I've seen the other side, and like all of it, it is how is beautiful as it is at times. What for? I don't understand it, and I guess I think I want to talk to Doug about that. I want to get his reaction, obviously, in this particularly. Like, we're here for a short period of time. I know it doesn't seem like that for us, but Cubby asked the question last week about immortality, and that we do have everlasting life. And so this is a really brief time, but I don't understand why. I don't understand what the whole purpose of it is. Why have us here? Why do this? Sometimes I feel like it's an experiment. I don't get it. So there's still a lot of questions, and why show me that? Why show me that? Why have me experience that? Send me back. I don't know, but there are moments that I can step back now a little bit and think about what happened, and think about those moments with Jesus and him touching my face, and how amazing that is. And I don't care if anybody believes me or doesn't believe me, to be honest with you. I don't care if people think I'm crazy and I just hallucinated the whole thing, or I was on drugs or in the hospital or whatever. You can say or think anything you want about that. I don't really care. I know what happened. I know that I was with Jesus and he touched my face, and I know I saw my grandma and all those people. And it's not just how, the human mind works to accept and makes sense of things. You can think what you want about that. You didn't experience it. And if you experienced, I guarantee you'd feel the same way. But yeah, it's a struggle. And I still have a lot of questions. I still have moments of really questioning and never doubting God. There's times that I'm angry. There's certainly times that I have been angry. Sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be, and I'm angry, but I never am really angry at God. I trust God to have this since the moment it happened, even though I'm mad and don't understand and confused. And I know and feel that he's working in my life. And, at some point I'll figure it out or it'll become apparent or whatever. I don't know. I guess, but there's moments where I just don't get it. I don't understand why we're here. Why? I mean, but there's so much of this that just sticks out in my head of those first moments when having Cubby by my side. And I think about that often, of him waking up and just, he wakes up and trying to wake me up. I picture him trying to like shake me, having me wake up, and I don't. It's just so heartbreaking seeing that little boy do that. And I know he didn't go through it, and I'm thankful he didn't go through it. And I'm so thankful that I'm here with him and Juji, and I'm so thankful that I get to walk Juju down the aisle, and if she chooses to get married, and I get to see them grow up and become who God intends them to be. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's my job and my role. I guess it is with every parent, but I've always felt, going back to my stories from last week and my relationship with God and my journey with God, I've always felt that he had something bigger for me. He had something, I don't know. I always felt, this is going to sound weird and conceited, but I've always felt like he had greatness. There was greatness in me that I couldn't realize until I stepped into who I am in him. And again, that greatness could be on a small scale within my own family, my own community, or whatever. I have no illusions that it's going to be this grand thing, like everybody's going to know my name or things like that. I don't care about any of that anymore. Maybe I did at one point, but I don't. But I've always felt that he wants something more for me. And I wasn't able to be that more until I learned the things I'm learning now and go through what I'm going now, and trusting him and learning how to trust him. And I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a more of a peace for me now, but I'm sorry. As I'm looking at the time, this is 58 minutes long. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but anyway, that's my story. And maybe it'll get easier to tell, and maybe I tell it in a different way, and maybe there's a different purpose to tell the story. Maybe it connects with somebody. Maybe somebody can relate to it. Others are going to dismiss it. Other people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't know. I know that I was called to tell this story, and I went through this for a reason, for something. I don't know what it is yet, but God asked me to tell my story, and I'll continue to tell it. Again, maybe I find better ways and better platforms, or understand what that's for, but that's kind of where I am now. And I'm not broken. I don't feel broken anymore like I did, and I don't feel as confused. And I know what's on the other side of this. If I didn't know what was on the other side of this, not other side of this life, but the other side of this process and this season for me, if I didn't know that, then I'd be in a whole different scenario for me. But I do. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that what God's doing in my life, I have no doubt where that leads me. I just have to accept it, and I have to embrace it and fully embrace it in who I am in him. And I understand that it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the things I do or my relationships with people and things like that. I still do things. I still swear. I still have a beer. So anyways, thank you for allowing me to share this with you. And listening. I don't know if anybody's still on, or is on, but it was important for me to share this, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I'd love to hear from anybody and wants to know more or has questions or anything. You can put them in the chat on the show tonight, or email me or PM me on Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Even if it's just to say thank you for sharing it. You know, I'm glad you shared it, or, you know, that I was being brave. Hopefully I don't get any haters saying stuff, but it's the world we live in, I guess. But I'm going to stop and talk to Doug and have him respond and reflect on this and kind of help me through this, because he has. And I'm so thankful. So thankful for him. So thankful for being here. I'm so thankful for my babies. I'm so thankful for Annetta, who had to deal with all this and step into roles that she wasn't comfortable in. And I hope that I can reach that other side of this season and help provide the atmosphere and environment and relationships that allows her to thrive like I saw her thriving. Because if I can't, that would break me. If I don't see the same things I saw in my children that I was shown and them being happy and thriving, if I can't achieve that here on earth, then it really won't make sense to me. So, thank you.